Just out of curiosity, Bobby Lee, when do you think you guys are going to go to in-person meetings?
We were just talking about that today, and the short answer is we don't know yet.
Okay, all right.
but we are talking about it.
Okay.
All right, let's call this meeting to order. This is the Jinx Aquarium Authority, Tuesday, May 19th, 2020. It is 5:03 p.m. Let's call roll, please.
Rowe. Here. OJ.
Here.
Bonds. Here. Montgomery.
Here.
Lynn.
Here.
Murray.
Here.
Shirley.
Here. Welcome, everyone. First order of business tonight is consideration and appropriate action relating to requests for approval of the consent agenda. Any questions or motions on the consent agenda?
I move to approve.
A second.
All right, thank you. We've got a motion and a second. Let's vote.
Rowe. Yes. OJ.
Yes.
Bonds.
Yes.
Montgomery.
Yes.
Lynn.
Yes.
Murray.
Yes.
Shirley.
Yes. We will pull item number 2. Move on to item 3, request to approve the FY 2018-2019 audit report prepared by Arledge and Associates. Mr. Sauceda.
Chair and members of the authority, in your packet, you should have received a copy of the audit, and I believe we also emailed this out before we sent it in your packets. Page 1 pretty much states the auditor's opinion. We received a non-modified opinion, which means it is a clean opinion. Our financial statements are within materially reasonable, acceptably reasonable standards. And towards the back, you will also have a letter from the auditors stating that they did not find any internal control issues, whether it's a material weakness or a significant deficiency. Overall, Arledge did a good job in the audit, didn't have any issues, and we present this to the authority to accept. Any questions on the audit?
And I think I might chime in just on page 4 is one of the pages that I have a pretty keen interest in, and that's
I'm sorry, Chris, page 4 of the audit is what page of the packet?
And that's something that I think we do need to consider. We want to pay our employees more, but we need to think about what impact that has over time. But as long as we continue to increase revenue, which I know we're having a small blip here with COVID, as long as we can continue to increase revenue and find new revenue streams, I think we can continue to afford to pay people fairly and increase, even, add on to what we're currently paying. And that's something certainly that the budget committee reviewed when they were reviewing the budget, and we talked about and has been considered. But that's really the page that I go to the most. And then Robert, I don't know if there's any other significant pages. If you want to find, this is a good document to find out, when we're looking at overall our debt payment schedule and everything. This is a good tool to use. But if anybody has any specific questions or comments, we'd be happy to entertain those.
Well, Chris, this is Harvey. It's really not. I was looking at if you take the operating income and add back the depreciation for 19, and I was looking just kind of sheer cash that might be available. Next year, we've got about $1.2 million debt principal. I think the principal starts being paid, right? Is it being paid now?
It's being paid now. And Robert Sauceda, what exactly is the principal that's being paid?
So if we flip to page 17,
Well, what page is that?
page 50 of the packet, this is the footnote to our long-term debt. So kind of towards the bottom of the page, the notes payable direct borrowing, that is the pledge loan that we have with Bank First. So you can see that we made a $300,000 principal payment. And then the revenue bonds payable, the 15.1 million, we made a reduction of 690,000. So that's the principal payment. So of the 1.2 million, that is our annual debt service for the revenue bond. We gave $690,000 towards principal.
And Harvey, to your point, I think what the point you're making is, you know, if you take out depreciation, which in our case really isn't a real cost necessarily, cash wise, we did have enough cash to cover almost the entire debt payment. The transfer from JPWA last year was the lowest since the vision tax expired, and it was a $75,000 transfer. So the aquarium's doing a really good job, increasing revenue. And we will talk about the whole situation with the JPWA payments. You know, obviously that's the next agenda item, but as I've said before, I think if you look at the debt schedule, and that's in here somewhere too.
The next page.
Yeah,
the next page.
The bonds, our whole strategy has been, can we get to, is it 2034? I mean, when this facility gets to when we get to 2034, 2035, we're really going to be in a good position if we're still have the same operating income cash wise, because we're going to have potentially, a $1.2 million, $1.3 million surplus every year to be reinvesting in the facility or saving for some other big project. I mean, who knows? But my goal is, can we get to 2034 without borrowing too much money from the JPWA or having too many transfers that need to be paid back? But then again, if we do need to have some transfers, we'll be in a really good position to be paying some of that back come 2034. And, if you think if we generally close that gap already, and we're only, 13, 14 years away from that, this facility long-term is going to be, in my opinion, will be financially sustainable at that point.
Well, I think you're right. It's just getting that.
Yeah.
Make sure we get there. Well, I just an observation. It wasn't anything of substance, but I was just kind of looking to see how tight it was going to look. Really, in this year.
I think you're on mute, Chair.
Okay. Any other questions on the audit?
No, I move that we accept the audit.
I'll second.
Okay. The audit looks good. Thank you, Christopher, to you and your staff, and to the aquarium staff for all you've done to put the aquarium in a good position to weather this storm or any other storm. You all are doing a really good job. Let's vote on that.
Rowe,
Yes.
Ogier,
Yes.
Bond,
Yes.
Montgomery,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Chair Lee.
Yes. That brings us to item 4, discussion on JPWA and JAA's historical relationship regarding interfund loans and repayments. Mr. Shrout.
Mayor, Chair, and all members of the authority. I myself was a little confused on this, but Teresa pointed out that So the JPWA guaranteed the JAA's debt, but only to the point that they were guaranteeing it as if they had to cover debt payments on behalf of the JAA, those payments would be considered a loan and would be paid back to the JPWA when the JAA had the funding. And so I asked Robert Sauceda to look into this and look into previous transfers from the JPWA or otherwise. And so he came up with this nice memo that kind of explains all this. And so on that first page, which would be page 62 of 117, it says that, it shows all these loans made, loans and lines of credit from the Public Works Authority to the Aquarium Authority. And then I believe when the revenue bonds were refinanced in 2004, as a part of that, the JAA paid back the JPWA over $3 million from those loans. And then subsequently, you see on the next page, page 63, that's the legal language in the bond documents that kind of spell this out. And then kind of complicating this, there was the Village on Main sale for close to $1.8 million. And as a part of that sale, the JPWA agreed to fund any shortfall that the Aquarium Authority would have related to its debt payments. And you can see from 2017, 18, 19, we've reduced the need for that operating or debt payment subsidy. But and so we still have $990,000 that is due the Aquarium Authority if the Aquarium Authority should need it. And you can see down here in 2013 on page 64 that there was another agreement between the JPWA and the Jinx Public Works Authority whereby the Public Works Authority basically paid for the wet lab. And so that would, I would think, be deducted from from what is due the Aquarium Authority. And so once the JPWA has transferred more than that 1.78 million to the Aquarium Authority, then anything beyond that would be considered a loan to the Aquarium Authority. And I don't know, I guess we would have to determine, maybe it could be an interest-free loan that would be due in 2035 or something, whatever. I think we need to agree to some sort of terms, but that is all of this information I was a little foggy on. And so I thought that it would be helpful for everybody on the authority to kind of understand the relationship there between the Public Works Authority and the Aquarium Authority.
Yeah, Chris, this is helpful. Now, I had asked you guys a couple of different times for the bond terms. I still haven't gotten those.
Is that not the?
No, the terms of the bonds. The bonds were issued with certain terms, not necessarily the agreements. The agreements between the parties, but also the bonds that go out to the public have certain terms associated with them. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean just the dollars and the interest. I mean, basically, I would call it an offering document. I don't know what you do with a bond this size, but that basically outlines all of the relationships between parties.
Robert, do you think that you could?
So we don't have one electronically. We have one printed. It's pretty much the size of a phone book or an old-timey phone book, but we can lend it out to Counselor or to Trustee Keith. But yeah, we have a copy of it in the rolling files.
Okay.
Is it bound?
Yes.
Okay. Would there be? I mean, are we the keeper? I mean, somebody would need that.
So when we issue the JPWA revenue bonds, we have an electronic copy. I can ask Greg Nito and Chris Byram's office if they ask them a digital copy of the 2004. But we have one printed, but again, it's pretty thick.
And it's been a while, but there may be in the front of that debenture document, there may be a summary, kind of highlighting it, the overall document. Because I remember the document being overwhelming, but it seems like there might have been something that in the front end of it that might be a little less onerous.
Okay, well, I'll get with you another time, Robert, because, you know, again, I'd like to see some of the document.
Sure.
So do we have a format like this from OAF that we could look at as to their contributions and what they're doing? And I would recommend also, if everybody's in agreement, I'd like to see what OAF has been doing as far as raising money, because this doesn't need to be keep coming out of JPWA.
When we were looking through all this info, I think Robert came up with what the transfers from OAF to the JAA have been over time, but I think but that was going back to 2010 maybe.
Yeah, I tried to dig in our accounting records and try to piece together kind of per fiscal year or by fiscal year the contributions that we received from OAF, whether it's Fish Friend donations, any kind of other pledge loan donations, such as like the Coca-Cola sponsorship or Nordam checks that we would receive. But the trail kind of ran cold after 2010 and things kind of got a little bit iffy. But I think maybe approaching it from the OAF side and asking them for their financials or their contributions may probably set a more comprehensive view on what they've given to the JAA.
That would be great to have. I would love to see that. Because this is JPWA comes from the city of Jinx, and the OAF is 2 people are on the board of the OAF from Jinx. So what are they doing to fundraise to help the aquarium? That's my question. So I'd love to see their financials.
Yeah, it would be helpful to have that whole picture there. This history is very is very helpful to have, and it's good to see. There have been significant investments from the city into the aquarium. It's blossomed into a really wonderful facility.
And I love that. I want to keep supporting it. I just think that OAF, I'd like to see what they've contributed.
Sure.
So
Yeah, that's
okay.
fair.
That would be great.
Are there any other questions about the replenishment agreement or previous transfers or the hive wet lab situation?
Did you say that was on page 63 that you were?
62, 63.
Yeah, it starts on page 62.
Oh, okay, I see it.
And then, yeah, and that's that goes back 20 years, and then all that 3 million was repaid to the JPWA, and then you have the loan and the replenishment agreement on page 63, and then the Village on Main land sale, and so there's basically $1.8 million that the JAA can draw down from the JPWA. And then there's the hive and aquarium wet lab agreement.
Yeah, I think it's a lot to digest. We just need to look at it and see how this matches up with some of the stuff we've known in the past. But this is very helpful. I think this is along the lines, Harvey, of what you've been asking for. Although I think what we're still missing is if any of the various funds have some kind of a restricted claim on them, which there's been some discussion of that in the past.
And which funds, Keith?
I'd have to yield the floor to Harvey on that one.
Well, I think the part when parcels of land were sold, and again, it's been so long and so many things, but the intent was that would be hard to get to. I mean, it just wouldn't be, 3 or 4 people saying we're going to do that it would have to be a super majority, and with the focus that it would be used for the aquarium. Because at some point in time, if all the land's gone and we haven't severely diminished the debt and it just been spent for expansion and stuff, we're going to have a problem. So I think that was originally we had and I don't have it. I mean, if I have it, I don't know where it is, but it was understood at least that there was going to be a super majority if the money was taken out and spent. It couldn't be spent anywhere else except for the aquarium, and even then, it would take a super majority for that project. It wasn't just at the will of 3 or 4 people.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. Are you talking about the OAF as far as their supermajority to spend something on the JAA?
No, I'm talking about money that when the campuses were merged,
right?
And we leased the Holiday Inn, and we sold the waterfront grill land, and then the land across the street. I can't remember what that was called. That we're still getting money on right now, I think. So that money was supposed to be set aside with the understanding that it was for the aquarium. Now that could be possibly to reduce debt. It could be possibly to expand on the aquarium. It was clearly to avoid what at the time when we built this, Seattle Aquarium was they were having success, but all the money was being drained out to fund projects in Seattle, and they couldn't even expand to get more cashiers to take in the fee. So we didn't want that to happen, and nobody was accusing anybody. We just didn't want it to ever be a situation where it wasn't focused, because there's just so much land, and once it's gone, it's gone. And that could be gone by expanding the aquarium, but it's still gone. I mean, it's still used after it was all identified.
And Harvey, we have the agreements with Village on Main and with the Holiday Inn, and we can go back and look at that. When you were speaking, I kind of got to thinking that any money changing hands from the JAA, transferring that out of JAA to the JPWA or city, that does take a supermajority. But
maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. So when the JAA, I think, was created, everybody voted and said that the only way money was ever going to come out of the JAA and go to any, like the city or the public works, it would take a supermajority. But I don't know that, I can't recall that in the Village on Main agreement, and I can look at we'll look at the Holiday Inn and Village on Main agreements and see if we find it. But we'll report back next month on that.
Yeah, and I think the issue is not so much that contract A, but when the money was actually paid or whatever arrangement was made, that was considered JAA control money. That it wasn't, because there's 3 parties to every one of these agreements. I mean, we've got land, and we've got some third party wanting to buy it, and we've got JAA that's agreeing, and OAF, is got at least got a voice. So it was just as much as anything to make sure that we didn't end up with the land, selling all the land and it not going for the right purpose. And I'm certainly not suggesting any of it has gone for the wrong purpose. I'm just saying that was the intent. And that's come up again with this facility that just to the north of the aquarium that I guess is still in play. I don't know. I haven't seen a closing date or anything on it, on the parachute deal.
Yeah, we sent the deed restrictions over to Mr. Bonds, and so I think I also sent them to Matt. So we're waiting for the kind of go ahead that the deed restrictions are approved by the OAF.
Okay, so who do we get the financial information out of OAF? Who do we have to contact?
Well, I'm going to look and see how far we can go back on the records we have. And then I think Matt might have some other records on there. Obviously, we don't have a huge staff of people that do this.
But there's 40 people on the board, right?
40? No,
Yeah.
I don't think so.
How many people are on the board?
Right now,
OAF.
probably in the high 20s, if I remember right off the top of my head.
That sounds more.
How many? I'm sorry.
In the
you cut
In the
out.
high 20s.
Okay, and there's nobody responsible for keeping records and being your financial?
I don't think I said that.
No, I'm not accusing
Okay,
you.
but I'm saying that our staff, the 27 or 26 people on the board are basically volunteers. Now, the trust, we have a trust account here at our firm. I just don't know how far we can go back to get data. I mean, it's been 15, 16 years now. So I'll look and see if we can capture that. Then I think it'll tell you how much money's come in, how much has gone out. And there's no place it's gone out except the aquarium.
Okay, I would love to see that.
And page 90 of the handout has a memo from Steve Oakley, the previous city attorney, kind of explaining the land deal with Village on Main. And the last sentence of the first paragraph kind of covers, or from his perspective, is explaining that transaction, that this is the 1.78 million is to cover future shortfalls that the JAA may incur in its operations or debt retirement. And that kind of goes in line with using, or the transfers from JPWA over to the JAA to cover those transfers for the past 3 years, was to cover any operating shortfalls.
Yeah, and for the most part, the transfers that would have come in and gone out of the OAF were more project oriented than, we didn't really get involved in covering operational costs, with the exception, I think there was a couple of years there that we helped with the bonuses and might have helped with some grants for people to attend things. But as a rule, we don't just
Well, and there's
pay for the
also
operation.
hardly the 2 years where we covered the exhibitory staff employee costs through a grant from a donor.
Yeah, but what I guess I'm trying to say is it was always designed to have an ending. That we're not, we're not just saying, okay, we're going to cover so much operations every year. That if it's a special project, most of the time it was an exhibit that we're going out asking for money and bringing it in accordingly.
Yeah, I think then there was the, we have been over time paying down that one bank loan,
Yes.
the short-term loan that was due to a hole in what one of the donors had pledged.
Well, still is, but
Yeah, still are. Yeah.
but that was borrowed against accounts receivables that were getting pretty stale as far as,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
one in particular, that occasionally they'll make a payment, but I'd say it's not a regular event.
Yeah,
What-
I wouldn't hold your breath on that one personally.
What is the OAF doing to raise money at this time? Do they have some kind of plan as far as function or?
Well, probably this year it's been virtually nothing because we haven't met very often, but the attempt was to find someone that would head up this, a paid person that would come in and start being more aggressive. I mean, we call on people. We've got some, some people that have given this year, but it's not someone out there on a regular basis calling like we'd like.
And what was last year like? What was the function that raised money last year?
Well, every year we do Splash, and that's a fundraiser. The Aquarium Run, that's a fundraiser. A variety of other smaller things, but really the big money that comes from donors, and we've had to get back with a lot of those donors and build some bridges from some past things that maybe didn't go as well as we all might have hoped in relation to the donors. And certainly what's going on right now hasn't helped any because it'd been real hard to get anybody to come visit. So, it's an ongoing discussion at the OAF. I know Matt and the crew have worked on several larger donors. And, that comes when it comes. I mean, you can't say, oh, we plan we're going to raise X and go try to raise it. It's really more of a, in essence, what the market bears, so to speak. What that group of donors is willing to do.
But aren't most of the fundraisers done by the JAA as far as the aquarium staff themselves? Because Splash was.
No, most of that is done
That
by,
has to do with anything with OAF.
most of that, Don, is done by the OAF working with the aquarium staff. The JAA itself does not do any fundraisers.
Okay. I appreciate your clarification.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the OAF was in its inception, it's a fundraising entity for the aquarium.
Right. That's why I wanted to know what amount of money has been raised by the OAF, because if we keep dipping into JPWA, that's not going to work. So I just kind of wanted to know what OAF is doing to subsidize that for the JAA. That's my question.
Well, we'll see if we can get you some better information on that.
I appreciate it, Harvey, and I'm not trying to beat you up. I'm just trying to get some.
Well, I mean, if you go back to the beginning, the OAF has substantially contributed a lot of money. Now,
Right.
over the years, it comes and goes because of the project. So when we're doing the sea turtles, that took several years, and so it's not just a set group that we can go and say we need X number of dollars. Sometimes we have some people that are pretty steady, but it's always a battle.
Right, and it's like with any fundraiser. I mean, I've been on the board and advisory committees of several nonprofits, and it's very difficult. I understand, I get it.
And I think if we don't get someone committed to that, it's just going to be too sporadic. I mean, we need a person dedicated that's working every lead, every grant, every possibility that's out there.
Yeah, development staff would help you there. And last I talked to Matt, he mentioned something about a gala event, maybe an annual gala event you all are thinking about putting on, so that'll be good. Yeah, we appreciate that extra information. We certainly appreciate you guys, and it's been an important partnership here in the city. We do have a wonderful facility here. Any more questions or comments on this agenda item? All right. Well, let's move on to item 5, discussion on capital projects for FY 2021. Mr. Shroud.
Chair and members of the authority, what you have on page 113 is just what we presented to the budget committee. But, you know, as we talk about revenue, and when we reinvest in the facility through these new exhibits or projects, Kenny and I largely, we look at, you know, redoing existing exhibits. Right now, that's kind of the focus, and Kenny can get up and talk about, you know, obviously the jellyfish and clownfish exhibits, and strategically improve the facility, but also we try to look at what are other experiences we can offer guests that may also generate new revenue. And so one of the items on here is the VR infrastructure, and that's the virtual reality pods that we have acquired, and we're not even acquiring them; they're being provided for free, and we're doing a revenue share where it's an educational 3D experience for our guests. But you know, it's an extra small fee, and we think that we can bring in, you know, potentially $100,000 to $200,000 through this new virtual reality. And I believe those were delivered, Kenny. I think I saw them sitting over there. Maybe not.
Hi, Mr. Shroud. They were delivered, but unfortunately, they came in damaged.
Oh, great.
They came in damaged to the point where they can't even be used. So I'm working with the VR company right now, and what their biggest hurdle right now is literally getting into the state of Oklahoma to be able to work on the account of that they are from Louisiana, the workers. So there is a mandatory 2-week quarantine from workers right now that come in to Oklahoma from certain states, and Louisiana is one of them. So right now they're just working on logistics to get that figured out so we can have an actual schedule.
Were those damaged by the carrier that delivered them?
That's correct.
So is the carrier responsible for insurance, I guess, on the repairs?
I would imagine so, and all of this is on the burden of the VR company. This is a profit share deal, so we're really not putting in revenue for this other than the infrastructure, such as electrical, that type of thing, which is not related to the equipment that was delivered. So we're really not responsible in any way for that equipment. That is unfortunate, or fortunately or unfortunately, depending on who you are. It's their burden.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, Christopher, you're muted.
And so moving forward, as we talk about more, even beyond these 2 budget years, you know, I think, Kenny, you had said one of the other projects that you were hoping to do and get approved, potentially even this fiscal year, was the Mudskipper Exhibit.
No, that's would be at least 3 years. So what we're planning right now is, which was already approved, and you know, is the clownfish and the jellyfish, followed by a jellyfish interactive touch exhibit, which would be the next after this one. So that would be on year 2, and then year 3 would be to revamp and add the Mudskipper exhibit to the Extreme Fishes Gallery.
And so those are the 3 main projects moving forward.
That's correct. Those are the 3 exhibit projects. So living exhibits, and so the plan is to, and the goal in the next 3 years is to flesh out the 3 galleries that these projects are in. So the first, so the gallery that we just completed the octopus exhibit in is the Marvels and Mysteries Gallery, and that added quite a bit to that gallery of completing it, but not completely. So when we get to the Jellyfish Touch, that interactive exhibit, that goes in that gallery as well, and part of that budget will go to fleshing out the rest of that gallery. And what I mean by that is when we built the facility, obviously, and Harvey can testify, we were short on funding and time, so we really didn't complete these galleries as far as theming. It's just painted walls. So what we're trying to do is flesh out these galleries with the best exhibits possible and theme them and basically be done with those galleries. And so this clownfish jellyfish would be going into the invertebrate gallery, and that would also, part of that project is to flesh out the rest of that gallery with theming, and then that would be put to bed. That would be that would hopefully be done by next spring break. And then after that, of course, like I just discussed, the Jellyfish Touch, which would flesh out Marvel's Mysteries, and year 3, we would dig into the Extreme Fishes gallery and flesh it out. So that way, all 3 of those galleries are considered finished for many years to come. This would leave the only 2 areas left, which would be the Oklahoma Fishes, which is a very large gallery. The reason I'm not putting that on year 4 is because that's a much larger budget. These 3 galleries are would cost, the budget for these 3 galleries are doable with the majority of the money coming from the fundraising bracelets. So these are under $200,000 projects, but once we go into the large area like Oklahoma Fishes, that has a lot. It's going to have a lot larger of a budget, which is going to require some serious fundraising, as well as the Oceans Room there, which is hopefully the centerpiece would be, and the project would be that enlarging that stingray exhibit, which again is a much larger budget. So that's why we're 3 years planning, and we feel that there's no reason why that's not going to happen, is because the money is coming from the bracelets. As far as the majority of the money, I think it's very doable. So that's why they are, I believe, a reality.
Very good. So do you have any ideas to what the OAF and the JAA have any projects in line to help with these 3 years of raising money? As far as, have you gotten with OAF and discussed?
Yes,
what?
Absolutely. And so with the octopus exhibit that we're just coming off of, we and through OAF, we were very fortunate to have Mr. McGraw sponsor the octopus exhibit. With OAF, what we have prepared, and Andrea and myself, amongst others, have prepared for OAF already, has been a packet that lists multiple projects for the future, and these 3 projects that I'm discussing that are planned for the next 3 years. Those are in that packet, and OAF has been bringing it to possible donors. I do not know what the status is of that, but I know that we have been working closely together, both the aquarium staff and OAF, and these projects have been identified, and I trust that they are actively fundraising for them.
Great. Thank you, Kenny.
Well, I would just say that the last 3 months, it hadn't been active.
Right, right.
There's nothing been going on that I'm aware of any major donations. I mean, the aquarium's been closed, number one, and we've been basically shut down for that length.
Well,
But generally, you're right.
well, I will match you with that these projects haven't been very active either. So, but we'll get through it. We'll get through it.
All right, well, thanks for putting this together. Any questions, comments on these capital projects? Excited to see these happening, Kenny. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to the staff report. I'll be back.
Sorry about that.
All right.
So we've been open since May 8th. So May 8th through the 14th, we've been operating under the guidance of phase 1 as far as the COVID guidelines set by the state. And I think we had a successful opening. We worked very diligently, the staff, for about 3 weeks prior to plan the safest way to open. You know, that pretty much transformed how we operated. It transformed the path of the aquarium, and everything was restricted to online sales. And we had quite a bit of the aquarium, as far as what we offer typically, was temporarily shut down, such as the playground, that kind of thing, for safety reasons. So it was a slow start, but we did have some revenue coming in. It was well received by the public. So we were kind of averaging somewhere around 350 to 400 people a day. We did extend our hours to accommodate that, so it's spread out. So we extended our hours quite a bit, actually, from 9 to 8 being open, and that gave us the opportunity to have as many people as possible, as far as slots that they could fill and spread people out. So since then, because of phase 2, we have opened last Friday to the general public, with very few things that are shut down. So we're open at the gate. People are buying general admission, and we're encouraging social distancing. We're still keeping the marks on the floors and that type of thing, and it's worked out really well. We haven't really been inundated with guests, but we've had some stronger numbers, and it's been, for the most part, well received. So we really don't know what to expect from here. We're going to see, I think, once phase 3 kicks in, hopefully we'll be, have some more momentum. Really, the only thing that we have shut down right now is just the feed shows, because that kind of forces people to congregate. And we're working very hard to continuously sanitize all surface areas. So that's kind of where we're at as far as our status of being open and our operations. And we're just, every day's a new day. As far as projects, the octopus exhibit is quite a hit, and I think it's every bit what we were hoping for. I'm really I'm really ready for those tentacles to be finished so we can put the cherry on top of that exhibit, and that's in the works right now. The next project is the anemone fish, the clownfish and the jellyfish. We've started on that in basically in the form of demolition of an area in the wet lab where Anne was doing her coral research, since that part of the research is complete. So that what we built for her there, that area could come down. So we're in the process of demoing that, and that's where our jellyfish propagation or grow out, part of that is going there. And so we're trying to prioritize where we're going to start on this project, because it's not a simple, straightforward effort. It requires kind of juggling, taking exhibits offline while rebuilding them. It also, at the same time, we have a lot more infrastructure that we have to build in comparison to other exhibits before. And the infrastructure mainly is to expand our jellyfish grow out. We have a very small dated jellyfish grow out, and we need at least 3 times that if we were able to continuously propagate multiple species of jellyfish as our jellyfish exhibits are expanding. So it's a matter of where we put our effort first. We were leaning towards starting with the clownfish exhibit because that tank has arrived. But our staff has done such a good job with these new species of jellyfish that they're growing out. We were really thinking we were just going to go through the motions for a while, but they've kind of exploded. So we're running out of room for jellyfish. So now we're thinking we're going to shift and do jellyfish grow out first. Also, there's a lot of equipment that is just being held up due to the COVID situation for the exhibits. We're waiting on equipment that we ordered months ago. The jellyfish grow out, we found out that the tanks should be arriving in the next few days. And then the rest of the equipment we either already have or is easy to get. So it would make more sense starting there. So that's kind of the status. We're working on a timeline, but again, the timeline is dependent on things. So for the acrylic, for instance, for that clownfish tank is held up. So we're waiting on that. So it's a little bit difficult to provide an accurate timeline, as 6 months ago we would have been able to do that with some certainty, but we are working on that, and so that's where we're at with that project. And another thing that we're doing right now, that we had our female river otter. So both of our river otters that we got years ago, they were not young to begin with. They were not very young anyhow, and they were reaching towards the end of their life span, which is around 21 years. So they're around 18 or so, and our female unfortunately passed recently. She had cancer, that she lost her battle to cancer, and cancer in these kind of animals towards that later stage of life is actually very common. So we're down to the male river otter, and he's doing well. He's doing great. So we really needed to get 2 more animals, some younger animals for next generation, and ideally 2 females, because the exhibit just really isn't meant for it to be a breeding type of situation. It's a little bit stressful, and the males and females fight. So we're really looking for 2 females, and river otters are a little tricky to obtain, captive river otters, and they're not cheap. They're somewhere around the $4,000 to $5,000 per animal range, and sometimes it takes months to locate some specimens. But we were lucky in that there is a facility in Florida that we actually obtained one of our first river otters from back in the day in 2008. And so since then, we have done some design work for that facility in Gratis for actually the river otter exhibit that they were doing. So their filtration, we actually designed that filtration, And you know, the equivalence of that design work it would have been pretty substantial. And so in our time of need, we called them, and they have 2 beautiful young female otters that they will be donating to us, a mother and daughter pair. The mother is 3 years old, and the daughter, I believe, is 1 year old, and they are living peacefully together. So we're very fortunate that came about, and we found a facility in Tallahassee that needs a male river otter, and they don't mind his age. So, and it's a beautiful facility with a large outdoor exhibit. So, our male otter will be out to pasture, so to speak, and live out his days outside. So, next week, or starting Sunday, we are mobilizing right now. We're going to go to pick up the 2 females in Florida. It's near Fort Lauderdale, and on the way, we are dropping off the male to the facility in Tallahassee, and then they're going to be our staff's going to be picking up the females on Tuesday and bringing them back. It'll be a straight shot back. Of course, it's not easy. It's 27-hour drive, I believe, something like that, straight shot. So, and I'll be flying in to meet them, and I won't be making that drive. I made it last time, but actually, we really I'd be doing a disservice to some of the younger biologists who you know, those animals are their responsibility, and this is a good experience for them. That they're really the ones that need to be doing that trip. So that's pretty much our biggest things that we've got going on, and if y'all have any questions from me right now, and otherwise, I was going to turn it over to Andrea so she can discuss some of the other wins.
And if we could make it somewhat quick, because we're running into city council time.
Absolutely, I'm terrible at being long-winded. Does anybody have any questions for me? Because I'd like Andrea to come up real quick. That's okay.
I don't.
Okay.
But good job with the reopening. I know you all put a lot of time and energy into making that a safe process. So way to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
And the Auditors Exhibit is beautiful. We love it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Andrea.
Hi, I'll be really quick. I just wanted to mention a few things that Kenny had said too about the octopus exhibit. We've had some phenomenal responses on social media, and all the guests who come in and talk to our volunteers and to our staff. So we're really pleased. It's kind of the new favorite animal of the aquarium now, so we're really proud of that. And we were really fortunate when we reopened. We had all the different local media stations who came to cover not just the reopening, but also the octopus exhibit. So we were really pleased with that. And then also, I just wanted to mention a few things that have happened since our last JAA meeting. We did participate in Giving Tuesday, and that was a really fortunate day for us because we were able to raise a couple $1,000s just on that day, especially thanks to a few individuals. We are now actively part of the OK Here We Go campaign with Oklahoma Tourism Department. We have also had some incredible Facebook Lives in the recent weeks with some really prolific people related to the marine sciences, so we're grateful for that, for those high-profile Facebook Lives. As you all are probably familiar with, we participated in the Jinx Good News Network, and that was really a great opportunity for us and other local institutions to work really closely together. We're already looking ahead and working on our annual report for this year, which will be ready for you in July to look back on this fiscal year. We're looking to do a virtual camp for those kids who might not be ready to come out and experience the aquarium. Other facilities are doing that nationwide, but we're also continuing to have our marine biologists for the day camps, which take place in June and July with only 10 kids per class. We've been working with the Jinx Chamber on Sharklahoma, which we're still looking to have in July, just not as many events as we had last year, but we're looking forward to doing that again. And then we also received all of our aquarium run medals, which next time you come to the aquarium, if you haven't looked on our Facebook page, we got those in, and they're really beautiful, probably the best ones yet. And we've gotten a lot of enthusiasm around that. And then just our trip and relationship with Israel, the Israel Aquarium has continued. They opened on May 7th. They've been in communication with us. And in another talk recently for the Tulsa Global Alliance about our relationship and partnership with them. And then the photographer who was also there recently did a Facebook Live for us and talked about capturing the images of Anne and Amy while they were there and just talking about the relationship between us and them in general. So we really look forward to continuing that partnership too as we approach our next fiscal year. So that's a quick rundown, and just appreciate all of your support.
Thank you, Andrea. I know you all have been working so hard on all these projects. It really shows.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Andrea, I don't know if it's you or Kenny, but might just touch real quickly on we've kicked off the kind of internal fundraising for the Flagpole for veterans. Are you?
Yes, so I've been in touch or talking with Matt Griffin about that. So we do plan to build a flagpole in time for the July 4th. And so we are right now looking to name what that special area will be. It will be kind of a branch off of Alligator Alley where we'll have bricks in honor of our veterans. So that's something that Matt has been working on, and we're working on it with him right now.
And just anybody that has a veteran or is a veteran, it's something to think about, because it's, I think we're talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, but somewhere around $150 a brick. Does that sound right?
Yes.
And I think there can be 3 lines on a brick, so it kind of gives them their name and what branch they served in, etc. Thank you.
And Matt is working on those forms right now. We have not put them on our website yet, but once we do, we'll put them on our website and notify people through social media and our newsletters.
Very good.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much. Any other questions for Andrea? All right. Thank you, Andrea. Keep up the good work. All right.
Well, I know you guys have council, so I would move for adjournment.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Thank you. Let's vote.
Rowe,
Yes.
Ogier,
Yes.
Bond,
Yes.
Montgomery,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Chairley.
Yes. Thanks, everyone.